So this week's broadcast is sponsored by Pesach Adel, L'Schus' mother, Neshamos' mother, Ya'nטע Freidah, Baliמא, Bas Rafal Avraham, whose yahrzeit is going to be Thursday Gimel Kislev. Her Neshama should have an Aliya. Okay, so let's get started. I think we're up to the Gemara of if you find Tefillin, can you assume it's kosher? So let's see what it says over here. Zog Tehela Gemara, we're on Daf Tadik Vav, Amud Beis, about 10, 12 lines from the bottom. Amar Abelazar. Hamoitzi Tchelas B'Shuk. What if you find Tchelas on the street? Now it says, it has to be done Lishma. So when you make tzitzis, we know whenever we knot our tzitzis, we have to say L'Shem for tzitzis. Everything in the production of the tzitzis have to be made Lishma. So if you found Tchelas in the shuk, can you assume that it was made Lishma, and therefore can you assume whoever lost it made it L'Shem tzitzis? So L'Shoinais, if you just find pieces of it, then Psulois, then it's going to be possible because we're going to assume that they weren't made for tzitzis because that's not the form you would find them in. But chuten, if you find them as strings, then kisherim, then we can assume that whoever lost them prepared them l'shem mitzvahs tzitzis, and therefore you can use them for your tzitzis. It's a classic case of finders keepers, losers weepers. Because
it was used for anything else? Was it clear that these are tzitzis?
Moti first showed a beautiful video about Tchelas at
the royal color.
It was a royal color, and it was restricted only to be used by royalty. So it could be he found it because a prince lost it, or someone wealthy who had that zchut and lost it. So it's not 100% that it was made for tzitzis. Zokta Hela Gemara Vayter. Maishno l'shoynos. Why is it that if you find just a piece of it, and Rashi teaches exactly what l'shoynos means? It's called a tongue because it's in the shape of a tongue. But tzemer sarch b'tzavua. It's just combed, dyed. It's combed, dyed wool, but it's not spun yet. So why, if you find l'shoynos v'ekta Gemara, we say you're not allowed to use it for tzitzis because it wasn't l'shma. The Amar Adaita, the Glima Tzavinu, you say that it's quite possible that it was dyed for the purposes of forming into a beged, not tzitzis. Well, chutanami nema Adaita, the Glima Tzavinu. Maybe what do you find? You found threads. Threads can also be used to weave a beged. So maybe these threads that you found are also not eligible to be used for tzitzis. So Gemara b'Shazurim. I believe what Shazura means, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that they take a whole bunch of threads and they spin threads together. That's what Shazura means. That was something that was more unlikely. So therefore, we would assume that was prepared for tzitzis because that's how tzitzis are made. In fact, the more Shasurim Nami, Nema Adadi, the Shivsa, the Glima Aifinu. People sometimes have cording as a decoration along the edges of their beged. Cording is Shazurim. So maybe these were made in this form because someone was planning to use them as a trim for the beged. So Gemara b'mufzokin the kulahai vadi latarchinji. These cords were found cut in short lengths that would be appropriate to be used for tzitzis. If you were going to use it for cording to run around the edge of your beged, it would be too short.
What's cording?
What cording is, you find like on fancy curtains, you find those like ropes that tie it up. That's called cording. And sometimes you see on a beged, so you find people on the edge of their clothing. They have it. Yeah, it's called cording. It's called cording.
No, that's not.
I'm a very stylish guy. I know these things. Sheesh. I'm a bucky. I'm always the latest style from 15 years ago.
Cording is usually present.
Cording? That's what I tell my kids. I'm not 10 years behind. I'm 5 years ahead.
Cording? Yeah, like a cording.
I'm 2 years now.
I love this place. I show up at 6:10 and the place is roaring.
So you're telling me that if you ever have a situation where it's not likely that someone would go out of his way to make something, so you have a raya that is the authentic thing. So over here by tzitzis, since it's unlikely that somebody would have made cording in such short lengths for any other reason, so it has to.
What's cording? See, I didn't know either. Oh my gosh. There's a cord of wood, firewood.
Cording is it's a thread, or it looks like a rope.
A trim.
It's like a trim. Like sometimes you see curtains are tied up with like a rope thing. That's called the cord. So people have that along their bag. There are certain clothing that they put as a trim. That type of material.
It's a term that's used by clothing manufacturers.
It's a term that I heard people use talking about clothing. I don't know who uses that. I don't know who uses it.
Yeah, I have a lot of daughters.
Exactly. When you have a lot of daughters, you don't only know the 6 dresses that you bought for your daughters, because everyone comes home from shul and says, "You see what she was wearing and what she was wearing." So, if you have 6 daughters, you know what every single person was wearing in shul, and you know if it's herringbone, or if it's cording, or if it's this, or if it's that, or if it's heat, or if it's hair.
I don't know. It's a weak argument. I got 7 daughters.
Yeah, but you also have a lot of sons, and your sons are older. My oldest children are girls. Sagt der hele Gemara weiter. We don't have such a svara, because in our mission you see very careful. You see, even though it's unlikely, you still don't consider it film. Why? Because in our mission we said that if it's chadashos, you won't assume that it's film, and therefore you don't rescue it. Would someone go make a kameya with such difficulty in the same way that they form tefillin, and that shouldn't be for tefillin? But you see in our Mishnah, you don't say that taina. That nan hamed devar mamur yishenis older tefillin. Aval b'chadashos, if it's new potter, because it might be a kameya. Would someone go and work so hard and make such an expensive, difficult formation for stomach kameya? Elamai, you see, you don't say that taina. So if you don't say that taina, why by tzitzis do we assume that if you found these corded threads that are short, that they're tzitzis? So Abzera told his son, whose name was Ahava, don't let them question the validity of the elections. Puk Tonilu, tell them, as I state, too bad, you have to accept it. If you disagree, too bad. That's the way it is. You have to accept it. No questions asked. Zok the Gemara.
I have my own raya.
What?
He's answering, I have my own raya from my own price.
No, but the Brisa doesn't explain it either. The Brisa says you have to accept it. You cannot question the validity of the election.
So does the Mishnah.
What?
So does the Mishnah.
Yeah. So, exactly.
Don't be afraid.
So you know what Rav answered? Rav answered, I'm a Republican, said Rav. I'm a Rav. Umishim the Tanila, Ahava Bared Rab Zera, keep Italai. But just because you quoted a Brisa, so Margolius, it's protected, it could be adorned with jewelry because that's gospel. How you talking? Absolutely not. Because we have to dig and drill and uncover and expose and reveal till everything is clear. This whole svara as to whether or not you say that somebody would not be matriach to make something unless it was the real thing, it's totally not machlokes tonight. Oh, I'm sorry. Keep it totally, but none. I did skip line. Thank you. But none. So you have the mice. You have a mishnah. So what do? We have as far as I. This whole concept, if you could bring a raya from the fact that a person wouldn't be matriach to do it, so the likelihood of someone being matriach not for the real thing, whether or not that's good enough of a raya to assume that it's the real thing, tanoi, that's in fact totally the machlokes tonight. Titania, hamoyt tefillin, our Mishnah says, machnichten zug zug, oh no, this is the brisa, echad deish, ve'echad deisha, echad chadashos, ve'echad yishanos. This is what we learned yesterday, this brisa. Divrei Meir. So you see clearly that there's a dispute specifically about whether or not you can assume that someone would not work so hard to make it look like film if it wasn't actually film. So in fact, we have brises in either direction because they'll be totally in the machlokes between Rav Meir and Rav Yehuda. Gewaltig. Zog the hele Gemara weiter. Shitzi Atzpi Simon. I never I'm able to figure out exactly what the simon is, but the next Gemara we're going to learn is going to be a simon. Frank the Gemara. The hashta the Tana avu the Shmuel. So we're going to be changing some of our reality. Until this point, we learned that chadashos means that you don't see clearly that they were knotted, and so you don't know if they're knotted. And Rishonis means that the knot is geschmack creased into the leather straps, so you know that they're older tefillin, right? So to Shilas, is it a kameya, and then you can carry it, or is it tefillin, then you couldn't carry it? Here in the Gemara, we're going to end up seeing a different shot. What's considered old? Old is that it has ritzuas and the ritzuas are tied. Chadashos yesh ban ritzuas, they have ritzuas b'loy mikusharis, and they're not tied. So once Avua, the Shmuel, Bar Yitzchak, made it clear in defining what's called chadashos and what's called yishonos, and the way he described it was they're exactly the same. The question really is, are the ritzuas tied into ksharim or not with an N, not with a K, right? The kul alma loy tarach inish. Everybody holds that a person would not be matriach to make something look real if it wasn't. Because our suffix over here, our reason to prohibit carrying out chadashos is not because you're choshish that there's a kameya. You never choshish there's a kameya. We always know there's tefillin. They're both tefillin. Whether they have knots, whether they're chadashos or yishonos, we're assuming that they're both tefillin. So why can't you carry out the chadashos, the ones that aren't tied? Because in order to wear it properly, that it should be derech malbush, you have to make a knot, and you're not allowed to make a knot on Shabbos. And the whole svara here, the whole difference chadash and yishonos is by chadashos you can't make a knot, you can't put it on properly, and then it won't be derech malbush. By yishonos, since it has a kesher, you can put it on.
Can make it permissible not to wear it.
Gewaltig. It's so much gewaltig kasher. In fact, no, v'lan vinu, the little manif. Make it, tie it with a bow with a permissible knot, right? I think that's the more kasher. You're shaking your head. No, that's what the Gemara is.
I'm impatient.
No, it's geschmack. It's much geschmack when you anticipate the Gemara's kasher. Why can't you make a permissible knot? On Marchista, Zoy Meres, from here you see that Aniva psula b'tefillin. Aniva is possible by tefillin. Zok to Gemara.
Hold on a second. I know it may be puzzled by film, but it's not what but it actually works to bring it in.
Oh, so the Shemar Masber, if you didn't make a proper kasher, that it would be proper film, then it would also not be considered a tachshit in derech malbush. It's only a tachshit in derech malbush if it's the way you wear it normally. Just to tie it temporarily, but it won't classify it as a proper shira for tefillin, that wouldn't be derech malbush either. So the only reason why you're telling me that I can't do this on Shabbos is because even an aniva will be ushered to on Shabbos. So are you saying, but look for legabin mitzvah of tefillin, the aniva would work? You're saying aniva would work. The whole problem is you're not allowed to make aniva on Shabbos. But you're telling me that just a bow is adequate to make it into kosher tefillin? The Amar of Yehuda Barei Rab Shmuel Bar Shilas Mishmei Rav Kesher Shal Tefillin Halacha L'Moshe Misinayu. Kesher of tefillin is Halacha L'Moshe Misinai. What is exactly Halacha L'Moshe Misinai? Zokt Rashi Heichu Osri. Exactly how the knot is formed is a Halacha L'Moshe Misinai. Shedoim L'Dalet, that has to look like a dalet. Ubit Firoson Osri Kimin Shin, and the tefira is made like a shin. Or Ritzua Katana Kavu Behen. And there's a small little ritzua sticking out of it. I think that's the knot of the Shel Yad, right? Harei Shakai. So it's halacha l'moshe Sinai exactly how this knot is made, and not only that, v'amar of Nachman v'noivein levar. Zokt Rashi v'noivein levar oisei heker oisei levar lechutz she'enam klape at tefillin bein habatim elakaneged maris ayin. These knots have to be visible and they have to stick out. And there are those who learn that it means that the black side of the ritzua has to be on the outside, not on the inside. But what it means is the kesher that you're making, at least in the shorosh, has to be outside.
Yes. Almost everything about tefillin is a halacha Moshe Sinai. We have no details whatsoever about what they call taitafos. We don't even know the word tefillin from the Torah.
I don't think what the Gemara is saying is that we don't know from the Torah it's halacha Moshe Sinai. I think what the Gemara is saying, don't think it's a minik. It's halacha Moshe Sinai. You have to do it. Because all of these things are mandatory. You can't say they're not necessary. They are necessary. Dr. Gemara. So you see that you wouldn't be able to make it. You wouldn't be able to make it without a proper catcher.
Yes, I think the whole idea of why we need to the kasha of the time of bowl just so there could be the malbush, not the tefillin. We're not talking about now.
So you're asking why can't to make it derech malbush to carry it? Why can't they use it derech?
I thought the Havamina was that if they all have rituals and they're not tied, the reason why you can't bring the new ones because they're not tied is because you can't tie it on Shabbos. The Gemara says, what do it mean? Just do
No, the Gemara's kasha wasn't do it derech adiva, and it won't be good for tefillin, but at least you can carry it, because the Gemara is assuming that if it's not ka'en, the way you wear it properly for tefillin during the week, then it wouldn't be considered derech malbush, even if you just tied it on without a proper knot that would work for tefillin. So it does have to be in the right way. That's right. So however you're going to tie it on Shabbos, it has to be something that you'd be Mikayim. You even suggest that Aniva would work for tefillin, and the only reason why it's not good is because of Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda holds that Aniva is usher to Kshur Mal Yosa. I have to conform to the specifics of the halacha Moshe Sinai. It's here to do. There's obviously a way where you could make an Aniva, and it would also conform to the requirements of the halacha Moshe Sinai of how tefillin has to be made.
So I'm wondering if somebody puts on tefillin and they're not properly, you don't have the shakai. I wonder if he's going to tefillin or not.
Probably not, because it has to fit halacha Moshe Sinai. He's not wearing tefillin. So there's a shaila. Between the Rabbeinu Tam and the Rabbeinu Eliyahu, and I'm going to try to say it over correctly. There's a shaila azay. Are you supposed to? It says are you supposed to untie the knot every day and tie a fresh knot every day, which is what Rabbeinu Eliyahu holds? Rabbeinu Tam holds no. You don't have to retie the whole knot. You put it on every day, but the knot remains permanently. So Rabbeinu Tam brings a raya from our Gemara. Rabbeinu Tam brings a raya from our Gemara that you Rabbeinu Tam brings a raya from our Gemara that you don't open up the knot every day, because our Gemara is assuming that the knot that you make for tefillin is a kesher shel kayama, and you're not allowed to make it on Shabbos. So, but according to Rabbeinu Eliyahu, where every day you open the knot up, a knot that doesn't last more than a day is not considered a kesher shel kayama. So Rabbeinu Tam brings a raya from our Gemara that considers by default the knot of tefillin as a kesher shel kayama. It must be a raya that you don't open up the knot every day. Rather, you just put the tefillin on, but you reuse the same knot that's there for days and days. Now, the Rabbeinu Tam holds that fakert, the knot, in order to be a knot for tefillin, it has to be a kesher shel kayama. So because of that, the poskim discuss an interesting shaila. What happens if you don't have tefillin and you borrow your friend's tefillin? The likelihood is you're going to have to adjust the shalrosh, right? You always have to adjust the shalrosh. So the question is if you're adjusting the shalrosh, then it's not a kesher shel kayama. So that's the shaila that's discussed. So there are those poskim who hold no one's opening up the knot completely. Right. You're just adjusting it. You're loosening it and adjusting it. So that's not considered being mevatel the kesher shel kayama. There are others who learn that it's a style. I think the Be'er Lachas is it's the style knot. So then you'd be allowed to, because the style knot is a kesher shel kayama. Even though punk now you're going to adjust it, that's not going to take away from its status of a kesher shel kayama. There's another sheet that held is it's never a problem with the kesher shel kayama, because my knot I'm going to put right back when you finish, and you're just doing it for yourself. So it's similar to the same thing. This is the type of knot that we consider a kesher shel kayama.
I think we could say that Rabbeinu Tam had the rule of tefastim, rule of tefastim. If he wanted everybody to be like Rabbeinu Eliyahu and untie the knots every day, nobody would put on his clothes.
So the Chol HaPachas, if you wear a Ben Tam's film, you for sure shouldn't untie the knot every day. Okay, Zok the Heilige Gemara weiter. Very good. Okay, Geschmack. Zok the Heilige Gemara weiter. Another case, another interesting halacha. Amar B'chista Amarav. Halakayach tefillin mimi she'eini momcha. What if you buy tefillin from a tefillin wholesaler? So he has a whole bunch of pairs, and you want to buy them from him, and you want to know if you have to check them or not. So the halacha is boidik shtayim shel yad va'acha shel rosh. So you have to be boidik a minimum of 3 individual tefillins, not sets, 3 tefillins, and out of the 3 tefillins, there should be 2 of shel yad and 1 of shel rosh. Or shtayim shel rosh va'acha shel yad. What do you check for? What do you check for? I believe Rashi tells us what you check for. No, he doesn't, but you have to check to make sure that there's no cheseris for Yiseris, and you have to make sure that the letters are written properly. So let's see what the Gemara says over here. So it's interesting. You need 3, but it has to be a variety. You have to have at least 1 shal yad or 1 shal rosh. If you bought all of these tefillin from one person and he got them from one person, so they're all really one batch. So then livdoik oy shalosh shal yad, oy shalosh shal rosh. Why isn't 3 of the same type of tefillin enough? Why does it have to be? Why does it have to be a variety? Some shal yad and some shal rosh. Nimi tray plus a gabri's oven, and if this was assembled, purchased from different suppliers, so then kol chad v'chad l'boy b'dika. So then you can't say just because I checked this one and it's kosher from vendor A, that is also going to be kosher from vendor B. Every single one should need its own b'dika. You bought them all from one supplier. The problem is you need to know not only that whoever made these tefillin knew what he was doing when he was making shal yads, but he also needed to know what he was doing with the shal rosh. So you don't need 3 of each. If you have 3 and you have a sampling of each, we'll assume that all of the shal roshes were done properly and all of the shal yads were done properly. In fact, any is that so? Vatani Rabbi Bar Shmuel b'tefillin boydek shalosh shal yad v'shal rosh. My love, how would you understand what Rabbi Bar Shmuel says at first glance? Lav oy shalosh shal yad oy shalosh shal rosh. Isn't that how you would interpret it? Shalosh mehen shalosh mehen shal yad mehen shal rosh. What he means is you have to check 3 tefillins, 3 tefillins. I'm not sure what the plural is. You have to check 3, as some of them have to be shal yad and some of them have to be shal rosh. That's what it means. In fact, Gemara, you're saying you need to check 3. V'atani Rav Kahana b'tefillin bodik shnayim shal yad v'shal rosh. He holds you only need 2. So do you need to check 2 or do you need to check 3? So Gemara Hamani Rebbe he Amar betrays him. They have a chazaka. Rebbe holds by 2 it's a chazaka. Rebbe is discussing a woman who marries someone and her husband dies, and then she marries somebody else and her husband dies. Is she considered a katlanis? Rebbe holds after she already married 2 men and they died, she's not allowed to marry a 3rd husband because she's already a katlanis. She's chuchzak to be a katlanis after 2. While other tanoim argue and hold until it happens 3 times. Until it happens 3 times, it's not going to be considered a chazaka. So that's not like
find a 3rd husband.
I'm
Is
sorry.
she going to find a 3rd husband?
You know what this lady is called in English? No, it's called a housekeeper.
Housekeeper. Okay. So the Heilig Gemara. So therefore, if you hold the 2 is enough, you hold like Rebbe. If you hold only 3, you hold like other people. So the Gemara weiter. If it's going to Rebbe, aim a sefer. Let's look at the sefer of this brisa. It says the same rule about checking applies to the second bundle, the second what's the word for it? What's the word for it when you buy, like on an auction, you buy a lot, right? It's the same thing with the second lot, same thing with the 3rd lot. So it's mashma at first that if you want your boidik 3 lots, so to speak, then the future lots that you buy, you don't have to check anymore. In fact, Gemara, if we're following Rebbe, shlisha mi islay, all it should say is v'chein mitzvahs hasheni, and then by the third lot you don't have to check anymore. So Gemara, Moidi Rebbe Vitzvasayim Dimitrei Tlosa Gavri Zavi. You're not buying each lot from the same supplier. You're buying each lot from different suppliers. So therefore, a Rebbe would be moide that there you need to check 3 lots. In fact, the Gemara, Iachi Afilu Revi Nami. I'm sorry? Afilu Revi Nami, Afilu Chamishi Nami. Once you're buying each lot from a separate supplier, so how could you possibly create a chazakah when you're checking 3 lots to assume that the rest of the lots that you will buy will be good? Avada, you cannot do that. Zok to Gemara, Einachanami, you're right. V'haitikatani shlishi lafuka mechizkiya. Well, oilam afilu revi v'chamishi nami. Avada, you'd have to continue check. What does Chizkiya say? Lafuka mechizkiya lashminan. The afagav, the ba'alma, trei have a chazaka, even though normally, I don't talk it chazake. I read it like an Amoritz. I'm embarrassed that I read it like an Amoritz. My chazake from its chazaka. Lashmin the avagav the ba'alma trei have a chazaka. Even though normally Rebbe holds to create a chazaka, Vitzvasayim, when you're talking about multiple lots that are being bought from multiple people, less like Rebbe chazaka, there's no chazaka at all. And that's why it spoke out 3 to show that we don't follow the normal rules of chazaka, which would only require 2. You need 3, but avada there's no chazaka at all, and therefore no matter how many lots you buy, you cannot assume just because some lots are good, the rest of them are good because you're buying them from different people. Zok the Gemara. If you found bundles, so let's look back to the Mishnah to see what halacha is. Look, it says it's right at the bottom of Tzadik Hayom and Aleph. It says Motzon Tzuvasim by Krichos and Machshich Alayim Umavian. You don't carry them all in, rather you wait there and you bring them all in when Shabbos is over. They're both words that refer to bundles, to lots. So what's the difference in between these 2 expressions? They're really the same, bundled together. However, the difference is Tvosum Zuge Zuge. Zuve, Rashi says, is sometimes a word used to describe pairs, which means you have a whole bunch of shalyad and shalroishes together. So they're in pairs. You have a shalyad and a shalroish, a shalyad and a shalroish, a shalyad and a shalroish, and then they're all bundled together. But first they're in pairs, and then the pairs are bundled together. That's what Svasayim are. Krichas are the Krichan Tuva. You just have a whole bunch of shalyads and shalroishes all mixed together in one bundle. She's looking at me funny. Did I say something wrong?
No, I'm reminding in 1986 when you put all the laundry together, but you put them on, you folded everything that night. They made a big roshim on everybody in camp.
Oh, you're talking when we did the laundry one night in camp?
Yeah,
you remember that night?
So you put them all together in one big bundle, but then you folded everything.
So you have to wait until Motzei Shabbos to bring them in. You can't carry them there. In fact, why? Just because you have a whole bundle, you have to wait. You could still chip away at it and take 1 pair at a time, according to the Tanakama. According to Rabbi Yehuda, take 2 at a time. The way I'm going to understand what Abba said, what Rabbi Yitzchak said, is kol she'ilu machnisan zug zug. The chala is kodim shkiyas hachama. If you can take them 1 at a time, and you'll finish before shkia, meaning you'll still have some of your Shabbos left, then machnisan zug zug. Then you should do that. V'loi. But if you're going to continue straight through to Motzei Shabbos and you're still going to be bringing stuff back in, so then there's no reason to go back and forth. Just wait there with it, protect them, and then you'll bring them all together. It's not like you're going to save yourself any time. You're going to have to be out there anyway till Motzei Shabbos. So why go back and forth 100 times on Shabbos? Wait there and then bring them all back together. Make sense?
I guess the Mishnah is saying if it's such a big pile as opposed to the ratio of the Mishnah.
That's correct. If it's a big pile and you're going to end up not finishing till Motzei Shabbos, and then Motzei Shabbos you can take the last load in, then just wait there the whole Shabbos and bring the last load in, bring it all together.
Shabbos from the house should come to the school rather than come to the house.
Cut it from all of the other mitzvahs. Just stand it all in.
And if he's walking back and forth,
I'm just saying.
he's not inside.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. He'll be putter from all of the mitzvahs. He's not going to be able to have Suda Shabbos.
He has no Shabbos. So that's what I'm saying. That's why Shabbos comes to the tefillin.
That's right. He'll have to bring Shabbos to the film. That's right. Okay, if it's a sakana, then you shouldn't wait there with it. Just cover them over as best as you can and leave. And then I guess you come out to Shabbos and you try to salvage them. Fact the Gemara, our Mishnah says you cover them and leave. We have another brayso that says to do something different. If it's a makam sakana, then and you have to remove them, then you should carry them a little bit at a time, so you don't have, although you have an akira and anocha, but you don't have a havaris dalaramis in between the akira and anocha. So what are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to be mechasan and leave them, or are you supposed to bring them? Amarav loy kasher. Depends on what the sakana is. Hab is sakana struchi, hab is sakana listed. There's two pshatim in Rashi, and we're going to go with the second pshat in Rashi, which Rashi says that he likes better. And he says as follows. Let me make sure I remember it with clarity. The problem with the Nochri is the Goyim are going to kill you if you wear tefillin. There was a Xeri and other wear tefillin, and the Goyim are going to kill you. So you can't bring it pachas merabamis, because if the Goyim see you moving around tefillin a little bit at a time, they're going to kill you. They're going to catch you. So you can't let on at all that you're dealing with the tefillin. So therefore, our Mishnah that says mechasan v'hoilach, cover it and leave, is speaking where there'd be a danger to you if you would be slowly bringing it in. And Hab is a konas listim. The sakana of the brayso where it says malichem pachas merabamis, there's no sakana. There's no sakana to the tefillin. There's a sakana to you. Listim are going to rob you. So therefore, you got to get them out so you can take the tefillin with you. You're not worried that anyone's going to kill you if you have tefillin. But you want to get out of there. You don't want to wait there. It's a bad neighborhood, so then you can take it with you slowly. You don't leave them there because we don't want to leave the tefillin that they should potentially be damaged. Nevertheless, you're still allowed to take them because there's no danger for you to carry them. So it's not a halachic difference. It's a safety difference. If it's going to be dangerous for you to be caught running around with tefillin, then you should just leave them there. Zok the Gemara. Amalei Abaye. Fek Abaye. B'mayu kimta l'mas nisan. You still line our Mishnah that you just leave them there is because you're in physical danger. If they catch you with tefillin, they're going to kill you. Okay. So if that's what the Mishnah is talking about, let's have a look at the Seifa of our Mishnah. If you create such a spectacle in public and you create a long human chain and they're passing tefillin from one to another, that's going to easily alert the goyim to the fact that you're taking care of tefillin, then you're for sure going to be in trouble. So there's a little bit more that we need to add into the Mishnah. When do we say leave the tefillin there? That's if there's a danger for your life, if you're going to carry the tefillin around because the goyim will see. List him, but if there was no sakana to your life, it just as a list him that you don't want to stay there, then then you can carry them a little bit at a time. And then Reb Shimon, when he says again, is referring to sakana list him. The end of the Mishnah is referring to sakana list him, not as a sakana chum. So at the end of the day, if there's a sakana chum where it's dangerous for you to be caught with tefillin, leave them there and don't bring them in slowly. But if it's only sakana listim, then bring them in as best as you can, and at least you protect the tefillin. He ought to use the human chain. And what are they arguing as to whether or not you should carry it or if you should make this human chain? The first time of our Mishnah holds, you're better off carrying it a little bit at a time. Why? If you want to make this human conveyor type of situation, that's much more of a bezoin for Shabbos, because so many people are involved. And since so many people are involved, it's going to create a bigger bezoin for Shabbos. We'd rather do it that way than have someone actually carry it and stop every 4 amas. A person might not be clear exactly how far he walked in each step. And there's a danger he might end up being over the Raisa by carrying it 4 amas.
For that reason, you should never be able to do that.
I'm sorry?
For that reasoning, you should never be able to allow to carry arm almost in just around.
It should be there should be a Xer Rabbanon that you're never allowed to carry even less than Dalaramas, because you might carry Dalaramas. and there is no such gzera. We're allowed to carry in Rosh Hashanah less than Daled Amos. I think that's a good shayla. I mean, you could be machalik and say here that Chacham are giving you an answer.
Right.
We're setting up a system. To set up a system to rely on it might not be appropriate.
The average doesn't say that. Focus.
Oh, it's just a brisa?
It must be, right? Average, we just talked about it.
Our mission.
Average, it only talks about whether you have to wait zug one, two
Oh,
zug,
so it's only the brisa.
or it's krichas, you gotta wait. It must be only the right.
Yeah, it's the brisa. But Tanya, it was a kind of malichin pachas pachas marbles. It's the brisa. Says it.
But this Mishnah, the human chain, the Gemara, the human chain is the Mishnah. Go back to
Our mission. That's right. So David has a very nice aura. If we have a concern of letting people walk less pachas pachas dal, why don't we always make such a gzera? I hear. I like that aura. I like that aura.
Reb Shimon says
According to this
nice
one man over.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, according to them,
Reb Shimon says nice in the Chavera. Is there any leniency in that? Or like, is that totally mutter lahalocha on Shabbos to do that? Or is there some kind
Yeah,
of?
no one's carrying anything more. Well, everyone in the middle is not even making an akira.
So therefore, so nobody is being favored Shabbos even midrabanan? They're not relaxing any rules?
I don't think so.
So then if they're not relaxing any rules, then why is there a Mazayin in Shabbos? Shabbos gets upset when tefillin are being seen.
I hear. I guess there's a whole massive of moving things.
This is Shla. Tefillin are in danger.
I hear.
Like you just said, but he's not gonna have through the Shabbos. He's not gonna have
No, I don't know if that's the problem. It's the absamilsus because it makes a whole matzah.
Rash.
There's a whole matzah of bringing it in film. So you're saying if there's no isser at all, if there's a pashas, there shouldn't be an isser. Why would there be an isser? One person passing to the next.
That's why I keep saying that Shabbos is sensitive. It doesn't like when busy with anything else.
I hear. It's a nice aura. Does anybody Chaim Tzvi asking a very good question? If there's nothing wrong, lalacha, even with rabbanon, to pass it from one person to the next, so that should be the lechatchila, right? So how can anybody argue with that? The Gemara is saying it's because it's avshamilsa the Shabbos. It's a bezoin of Shabbos. But you're asking if it's 100% lalacha, why is there a bezoin of Shabbos? Here, I'm gonna have to do homework on that because it's a very nice aura. It's a very nice aura.
Don't forget about Louis either.
That's right. That's right. I have a lot of homework to do. Okay. Kavaltik. So we have two good kashas. So we have two good kashas. Kasha number one is why don't we always make xeri? You shouldn't carry pachas pachas without amis. And B is if there's no problem even with rabbanon of passing it from one person to the next, so that everybody should read there. That's the lechatchila. Why should there be a problem of avshem milsa if everyone's doing everything properly? So I'm gonna have to look into that. Shkoyach. Gewaltig. Sagt der Heilige Gemara weiter. If you do ever noisen at the mechaves. So our Mishnah discusses where the same configuration, I'm sorry, I skipped. The Mishnah says the same thing of passing the tefillin from one person to the next applies to a child. There's a child out there, you can bring him in by passing him from one person to the next. My boy husband. Why in the world is your son out there in the middle of this Rishus Harabim? He shouldn't be there, and if he's there, then you're Pashaya. So who said you should have a right to be able to bring him back in?
That's your
Well, you have your kid on a chain.
That's your punishment.
I guess it's in a place where it was unlikely they should be, right? Zok Gemara, and it's a child who can't walk. Like what is your infant baby doing out of the middle of Rishus Harabim?
Child services.
You still have said that it's not a child, it's a baby.
Right, it's a baby.
It's not
It's someone who can't walk.
Right, but it's not a 3-year-old that all of a sudden made a tantrum that won't.
That's
come
right.
back.
Right. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about an infant. That's right. So tomorrow, the Vayim Nashatana, that's not what happened. They were out there in the soda, and the mother gave birth then, and it's not safe. It's not 100% safe to leave a newborn baby out there, and that's why we want to bring it in. I'm sorry.
They were having a picnic and they left the baby.
Right to Gemara. Umay afilu hein meya. So what does it mean? Afilu hein meya. It says even if there's 100 people, you still pass it out. The afagab, the kosher yoda, even though it's not good for the baby being passed from hand to hand, especially in today's day and age, we can appreciate that. It's not safe for a baby to be passed to so many hands. Afilu hachi ha'adifa. Nevertheless, this is still the best way to do it. Rashi says, "B'Shabbata v'lo yitaltalenu hu levadoi pachos midal ramis." According to the Shita, who learns you're better passing from hand to hand, not carrying anything, pachos midal ramis, because we're afraid you're going to walk more than dal ramis by mistake.
If it's a baby, then we're definitely not worried about nothing.
We're not worried about what?
Nothing.
Well, there's no Isser unless you're in China and it's also to have a baby or something. Okay, so more about Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Nois and Adam Chavis. The same thing you could do with a barrel. Frank the Gemara, let's see what happened. The Mishnah said that you can pass a Chavis from hand to hand until you bring it in. And they told Rabbi Yehuda, they responded to Rabbi Yehuda, Nois and Adam Chavis, they responded to him, Loi Sahalach Zu, Yosy Miragli Balel. You cannot allow this chavis to go into an area where its owner can't go. If an owner is limited by the tchum, then the barrel is limited to his same tchum. So how could you be to say that you can pass it from hand to hand? I feel a chutz tchum. The barrel surely should not be able to go past the tchum. So the Gemara wants to know that Tanna Kama has a very good taina. So how could Rabbi Yehuda allow it to go out of the tchum? In fact, the Gemara, but let's tell Rabbi Yehuda. Hodit nan habehema va'kelim kiragli habaylim. Does Rabbi Yehuda not hold that all of your possessions are limited in where they're allowed to go based on your mobility? Amar Shlokish mishum levi saba hacha b'mayaskinan. What are we talking about here? We're not talking about passing the actual barrel. What we're discussing is pouring the water that was in the barrel into your friend's barrel. So it's only the water that's being transported. It's not the barrel. How about the water? Rabbi Yehuda Tamei, Damar Maim Ein Bahen Mamish. Rabbi Yehuda holds Maim Ein Bahen Mamish, and therefore water is not mishubed to a tchum. Rashi says, the second barrel owns his own. The second guy owns his own barrel. The Chein Tamid Oisa, and Rashi divides Ein Bahen Mamish Liknoi Shvitza Esol Baleim. Mayim is not kind of shvitza. So if you go to someone's house and he has a different tchum than you, and you take water from him, you're allowed to take that water to your tchum. Rabbi Yehuda potters by water, and Rashi tells us it's a case where a woman had to borrow ingredients from her friend, and she borrowed water. So let's see, we can see Rashi inside. She borrowed spices or salt and water for her dough. Tanna Kama holds that this dough created is limited to the scope of these two people, the tchum of these two people, the way they overlap. And therefore, you cannot move the Isa anywhere that both people cannot be there. If one woman was kind of shvisa to the east, to the north, and one was kind of shvisa to the south, now this Isa cannot be moved because it's going to be out of either one of the two tchumim if it's moved in either direction. Of course, this is only if their Eruvin are so far apart that there's very little overlap. However, Rabbi Yehuda poiter b'mayim. Water, he's not concerned. So the woman who provided the water, the dough will not have to conform to that woman's tchum. The whole dough mixture only has to conform to the tchum of the woman who contributed the flour. Because flour will be kohen shvisa, but water will not be kohen shvisa. So the Tanya Rabbi Yehuda, Mayim umelech batela b'isa. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped. Rabbi Yehuda pointed Mayim shem b'mamish. Umay loy tahalach zu. Loy tahalach zu is mashma the barrel. And the Tanna Kama holds even the water cannot move. Rabbi Yehuda holds the water could move. So what do we loy tahalach zu? Loy yahalach mashebezu. What the Tanna Kama means, even the water that's in the barrel cannot go out of the tchum of the person. Yosy miragli habaylim. So everybody agrees the barrel has to stay put. Rabbi Yehuda holds the water is allowed to move out of the tchum, and the Chachamim hold the water may not leave out of the tchum. When did Yehuda say Mayim Ein Ba Mamish and they don't enforce it, their Tchum? That's only if the water is no longer be'en. It's mixed into a dough. You don't see any water when you look at a dough. But Hechad Isnu Beinayu, but in our Mishnah, where we have actual water in a barrel, Mi Shamisle, who said that there also he would say you don't have to follow the Tchum of the water. And I'll prove to you that he does. Because there's another case there, not when water got mixed into an Isa, but when water got mixed into a tafshul. When water's in a tafshul, you'll still see a liquidy form. And Hashtu B'Kdeir Omer Rabbi Yehuda Loi Batlu. Rabbi Yehuda held that in the case of a tafshul, there the water is not bottled. There you would have to be subject to the tchum of the person who gave the water as well. So Beinayu Batli, you're going to suggest in our Mishnah, where it's pure water in a barrel, that the water will not be kohen shvisa. Now, where do we see that Rabbi Yehuda says that a tafshul, the water is not bottled? The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mayim Umelach B'Telim Be'isa, but the Ein B'Telim B'Kdeira B'Pnei Reitfa. Since it's providing moisture, so the water is more sensible. You see the water more in a tafshul than you see in a dough. You do have to carry. Rashi says shenikar. You can tell the water. Even if Yehuda agrees, you have to follow the tchum of the water as well. So we have to change pshat. You have to say that we're discussing the case where the chavis was kohen shvisa, but the water was not kohen shvisa. How is it possible for something not to be kohen shvisa? So Rashi, ma'im shalei kohen shvisa shnishmalu hayoim ma'ayin hanevei amin anar. You just filled it up today. So the halach is nahar shamoishchel me'yonas hanoivim harein kerag lekolodim. If you take water out of a flowing source on Shabbos, everybody agrees that that water is not subject to any tchum. So we're talking about chavis shekon shvisa u'ma'im shalei kohen shvisa skinam. The betela chavis lagabe mayim. Rabbi Yehuda holds that in this case the chavis will be bottled to the mayim, and we're no longer learning that you're pouring the water from barrel to barrel, but the actual barrel is being passed from person to person. And since the water is not kohen shvisa, it's not limited by tchum, the barrel as well will be bottled to the water, like we learned in similar cases. If you carry a live person out on a stretcher, you're not chayiv for carrying the person because and since the bed is bottled to the person, then you're not chayiv for carrying out the bed either. And the same thing, we learned that in order to be mechuyev for carrying oichlin from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah or vice versa, there has to be a minimal shear. And we had sugyas how much each type of food, depending on how choshev it is. So if you carried out food that was less than a shear, you're not mechuyev for carrying the food. But even if you carry that food in the keli, pater afal keli. Why? The keli is bottled to the food, and since you're not mechuyev for carrying the food, you're not mechuyev for carrying the keli either. So let me just say, so therefore a barrel with water, since you're not mechuyev for carrying the water, because the water is not limited by the tchum, and the barrel is only a container, so it's bottled to the water, therefore you won't be mechuyev for the barrel either, which is Rabbi Yehuda, but the Chachamim holds that you would have a problem. What do you want?
Something tears on your clothes, a strap tears on your clothing, right? It's not serving a purpose anymore. It's like carrying, right? So in my case, it's bottled to the bag, and the bag should be bottled to the person. It shouldn't be carrying.
Well, if indeed it is bottled to the bag, there wouldn't be a problem. If indeed it's bottled to the bag, there wouldn't be a problem.
It's attached to it, well, partially attached to it. So I'm saying, like, how far do you
So
go?
I once had
Isn't even attached to the person.
I hear.
It's lying on it.
I once had a situation where when you used to buy new clothing, a new coat, there would be like extra buttons sewed in at the bottom.
Right.
So it was on Shabbos and there was no air. So I asked the Rav, I asked him, I guess it was above that. I asked him if I'm allowed to walk home with this. What am I supposed to do? So he said, right now, do you need an extra button? I said, no, I want to go. He said, so now it's bottled. If you had a button missing, then that button might be a problem. But if there's no button missing, you told me right now it could be bottled.
But I know in Washington Heights, there's no area. My shirt told me that then I'm up, but I'm taking on buttons.
So I guess you have to ask your Rav.
We had this shaila in Brochus, and I told you then that I was mechadish to the Rav that when you sell a coat, meaning if you're going to sell an item and it has its original buttons, then it has its
It's mint. It's mint.
It's mint. It's a mint collection or whatever it is.
Right.
And so therefore it's part of the beged.
So it would be bottled. So therefore it should be bottled to the bag.
Bottled to the beged. It's part of the beged. It's not for you when you get meaning for this beged. It's part of the beged. And it's choshev to the beged.
I hear. That makes sense.
I remember
And the Rav accepted this far.
I don't remember that. But I remember in Brooklyn we were talking about.
I hear. Okay. So don't get more about it. Most of Rabbi Yosef. If Yosef had a kasha, Rabbi Yehuda Omer b'shiyara. If you're out on the caravan, meaning you're out in the desert, you're out in the wilderness, you're not at home. There we're makel and we say noisin adam chavis lechaveri b'chaver lechaveri. We allow you to transport water using this method. So it's mashma that Rabbi Yehuda is only makel b'shayara in shaloi b'shayara loy. Yet in our Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda seems to be saying even not b'shayara, you're allowed to move this around. So therefore, it shouldn't be allowed. So how could you learn according to Rabbi Yehuda you're allowed to pass this barrel around? We'll have to learn that our Mishnah, where Rabbi Yehuda allows you to pass the barrel around, even though it's going out of the tchum, it's not in a regular case when you're home. It's speaking when you're out in an encampment where you needed to be able to get water to everybody. Abai is a different shot. B'shayara, if it was in the wilderness, then afilu chavish shekansa shvisa umayim shekanu shvisa. Then the Rabban would allow you to move it around, even if it was kanu shvisa. The Rabban would allow you because of the need to make sure everybody has water. But shaloi b'shayara, if you were at home, then Rabbi Yehuda limited to chavish shekansa shvisa umayim shaloi kanu shvisa. That's when it would be allowed. So therefore, the way Abai is learning that our Mishnah is speaking by chavish shekansa shvisa umayim shaloi kanu shvisa, and the Bryza is speaking. The Bryza that allows it only b'shayara is even if the mayim was kana shvisa. Rabashi Yomer, Rabashi is another teretz. Hacha b'chavis tehefker askina. The barrel that we're talking about in our Mishnah is a barrel of hefker. It didn't belong to anybody. Umayim the hefker askina, and the water was hefker. Uman amrulai. So if it's hefker, therefore it wasn't koine shvisa anywhere at all, and that's why you're allowed to pass it from person to person. But the Chachamim in our Mishnah, who were amrulai, they told Rabbi Yehuda that it's subject to the tchum. That's the shita of Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. The Amr chefze hefker koine shvisa. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri held that even the chayvitz of hefker is koine shvisa, and wherever that chayvitz was when Shabbos arrived, that is tchum. So my loy tahalach zu Yosy miragli abaylim. The Chachamim in the Mishnah said you're not allowed to move this barrel more than will the Bailim will move it. But the Bailim, there are no Bailim who are speaking about hefker. So what it would mean is you're not allowed to move these hefker kalim more than you would move kalim that did have Bailim. In other words, wherever its tchum is, it's limited to that tchum, and you're not allowed to move it further. So we have like 4 pshatim in the machlokes, or in the difference between the Bryce and the Mishnah, why it's not a stira. Okay, Gavaltik, let's stop here. Oh,
Yeah.
Broadcast is sponsored
by the Edels. I announced that.
and also Victor
Figures today also?
instead of last week.
Okay, so the broadcast is also sponsored by the Victor Hyman family. Neshamos, his grandfather Simcha ben Yosef, whose Yorshot was 1 week ago, but we're going to have to do it again to announce it at the beginning of the broadcast.